Hello, this is the My Artifact episode number 3716. Today's date is November 21, 2025. It's been almost like a night at 9:37 p.m. Alright, today's Artifact episode is a bit more different. I'm not gonna talk about I'm not gonna asking question to myself. Actually talking about today there is something realization is actually happened to me, and I wanted to talk about it. Okay, first of all, let me clarify regarding about everything. Okay, first of all, today's date is 21st of November 2025. Okay, so whatever I am trying to tell you is simply telling you till today's point of perspective. Okay, in the future I'm not really sure what will gonna happen. Okay, but I'm gonna make sure that whatever I'm trying to tell you is simply okay. it's like that na ki. Okay, even if I try to confusing and everything I try to clarify. I wanted to talk about what is actually realization has actually happened, and I wanted to mention step by step and simply telling everything regarding about that. Okay, now first of all, my name is Saurabh Authare, and I am simply doing this artifact episode. The things that you are hearing right now, these are artifact episode. Now I am simply recording this artifact episode since 2015, and I'm doing this thing every single day. Oh yeah, like every single day means like that every single day, not exactly like basically is this thing that sometimes some of the time is not really happened. So in sometimes I didn't really record, but if I'm gonna say 10 out of almost like a 9 day I actually record. Okay, and almost basically is this thing. So if I'm gonna say every day I record my artifact. Okay, another thing is that while I was recording my artifact, I am doing this thing since 2015, so it's been almost like a decade. Okay, and because of I'm doing this thing, I simply gain so much amount of values and information inside of me. I'm not really sure is it actually happened, but it actually I think that it's actually happened is because of this artifact. Okay, another thing is that the information that I'm getting is from the artifact, mostly from the artifact. Okay, like basically I actually consume a lot of information through internet, specifically YouTube. Okay, because I watch a lot of YouTube, YouTube and things like that. I gain a lot of information, and artifact is letting me that information to implement in my life, and it's somewhat something somebody help me to be better, be grow and things like that. Okay, and because of this thing, it somebody add artifact is add so much very bigger impact in my life. It shows me my purpose. It shows me my dreams and things that what could I supposed to be do. I realization is actually happened by the artifact episode. Okay, now basically is this thing that in somewhat some sort of thing I somebody started this artifact, and I gain this value. I also want that people should supposed to do this thing. Okay, people should supposed to be record their artifact, and obviously I'm gonna pretty much sure that they will gain so much amount of value too. Okay, it is also really essential that it's when you started doing this thing, because it's a technique or whatever it is, it feel really awkward at the beginning, very awkward. Yeah, you cannot able to talk with yourself and things and that. Okay, yeah, the somebody gaining value that actually happen after you somebody year. Like basically the value that you are getting from the artifact, it's not instantaneous. It's it takes time, but you just have to be consistent and be simply completely do this thing. Another thing is that do not do the artifact by if I'm saying this thing, or basically you have to do it by yourself. It's not a thing is that someone says to me that's why I'm doing it, that it's not really work that way. Basically artifact is simply work with consistency, with your effort. Like basically, if you want, then it kind of like a add implement on you. Okay, yeah, get it. Now basically is this thing, I want to do this thing. I want to kind of like a something that ki people should supposed to be record their artifact, but I don't want to kind of like a simply force them to do this thing, because I understand that ki if I force them, people will not gonna do this thing. They might gonna do kind of like a simply once and twice, but then after that they will not gonna do this thing. Okay, yeah, and that is completely true. Okay, yeah. So I don't want to force them to kind of like record the artifact. Okay, yeah. But I want that people should supposed to be record the artifact. So how do I supposed to do that thing? My kind of like assembly, my way is that my like basically what I think is that I should supposed to be make an application. Okay, yeah, a artifact application. Okay, yeah, my artifact. It's a kind of like assembly application where kind of like people should supposed to be record the artifact, record their artifact and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing, what does this application do? Okay, yeah, it's just a kind of like a typical audio recorder application. That's it. But what's exactly kind of like a being really different in this particular application is that you not only you record the artifact, but you also kind of like listen other people's artifact too. It's kind of like a social media platform. Okay, yeah, in kind of like somebody YouTube, that you can whatever the skills that you have, you can upload your kind of like make a video, showcase your skill in the video format, upload that video on the YouTube platform. You can showcase your skill on the YouTube, as well as you can kind of like simply gain other people's skills from YouTube too. It's kind of like a something similar thing. Okay, means like that you can record your artifact. Okay, yeah, as well as you can listen other people's artifact too. Okay, get it. Now another thing is that when you kind of like record the artifact, you actually record, when you record the artifact, you actually talk about very personal thing. Okay, yeah. And when you try to talk about very personal thing, and if that personal thing went kind of like a public, then it kind of like somebody create kind of like a catastrophic event that shouldn't supposed to be happen. Example is this thing that a kind of like somebody you wrote the diary, and kind of like that diary is kind of like publicly available. Everyone can read this thing. Obviously you don't feel really good. You feel that no, it's you shouldn't supposed to be do that thing. Okay, yeah. So I have in my application, I have privacy filter. Okay, yeah. So what does it privacy filter do? What exactly is this thing? So basically is this thing, you actually record your artifact. Okay, regarding about, you're gonna talk about everything. You're gonna talk about you're gonna talk about the opinion regarding about the aliens are exist or not. You're gonna talk about how the economics actually work or not. You actually kind of like express yourself. You just have to let it go down, let it express, blunt it out. Okay, yeah. It shouldn't supposed to be right. It shouldn't supposed to be exactly correct. No, it should supposed to be kind of like express yourself, your thoughts and things and that and that. Okay. Now basically you kind of like express yourself. Now this is the kind of like an artifact. It kind of like a record audio wave file. Okay. Now basically is this thing, after you record, okay, yeah, when you kind of like hit the public, how it kind of like simply happened, like how is kind of like that privacy filter is actually happened. That privacy filter is kind of like a thing that the privacy is like basically my application is actually run on algorithm, is actually run on artificial intelligence. Okay. Now what does that AI, what does that artificial intelligence gonna do? It kind of like a detect what is exactly noun in your artifact. Now what is exactly noun? A noun means like that when you record the artifact, at the spur of the moment, you kind of like a mention your name, mention where you live, you mention kind of like some of the other people name and things and that and that. Okay. Now if the people will kind of like heard all those names and things like that, they will kind of like find it, they will gonna find who you are and what you are and things like that, because you actually mention some of the details and things like that. So what does my application, what does AI do? AI is kind of like detect the noun. Okay, means your name, your kind of like somebody, the kind of like a place that you mention, or kind of like some of the other people name that you mention. It kind of like detect that noun. Okay, yeah. It understand that kind of like a timestamp. It point out that timestamp and add beep over there. Okay, yeah. Add beep over there, or kind of like a mute that particular segment. Okay, mute that particular segment. So basically is this thing, when this actually happened, then your artifact is completely kind of like without any details. Okay, yeah. It's kind of like somebody that without any details and things like that. Okay. Now this is the one step. Okay, this is the one step that kind of like somebody your artifact is literally clean. Okay, yeah. that it doesn't really mention your name, it doesn't really mention anything at all. Okay. Now basically when you kind of like hit that artifact upload to the public, then what exactly happened? Let's just say my like it's kind of like some YouTube. Okay, yeah. But in the YouTube platform there is a kind of like some profile name is kind of like assembly visible to for everybody. Okay, yeah. Same thing happened in here too, but there is a kind of like a different thing. Okay, different thing means what? Like basically let's just imagine my profile name is a Prozac 1943. Okay, yeah. Like basically you cannot create your profile name by your name. No, you can create your profile name or handle name by kind of like assembly a kind of like a different name, like kind of like a Prozac 1943 or kind of like a Half Blood Prince 1947. So like these are kind of like assembly the username. Yeah, these are kind of like your username. Okay, yeah. Now you kind of like hit that artifact upload and it went to the public. Okay, yeah. Now it went to the public. So basically you actually click on your profile photo and you actually seen your profile and you actually seen the so many artifacts that you uploaded. Okay. Now what is exactly your handle name? Your handle name is a Prozac 1943. Okay, yeah. And it kind of like shows that Prozac 1943 uploaded this artifact. This artifact is about does alien exist or not. Okay, and you actually mention this thing or okay, yeah. Now basically this is the stuff that you are kind of like simply seeing on your screen, mobile screen. Okay, yeah. But the other public, they will not gonna see the same that you are seeing. Okay, yeah. They kind of like seen very differently. They seen as kind of like a some different name of username. Okay, yeah, different name. Like basically your username is a Prozac 1943, but the people will kind of like simply seen a very different username. Different means what? Different means like let's just say they kind of like seen as a Half Blood Prince 43. Okay, they actually seen the Half Blood Prince 43. So what exactly happened? Like basically is this thing, my username is a kind of like assembly Prozac 1943. Why not my username is actually showcased to the people? Okay, why not is this thing? I'm gonna kind of like let me explain. Okay, let me go through that particular step by step. Okay, yeah. So this is the step 2. Step 1 is that clearing out all the noun from your artifact. Step 2 is kind of like simply refer your handle in different name. Okay, different name. Okay, different name. Okay, I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, I'm gonna tell you why is actually happened. Okay, okay, let's just explain why is actually happened. Like why am I let this thing happen? Okay, what is exactly am I offering? Am I offering that I should supposed to be kind of like a people's, their identity should supposed to be kind of like a private. Okay, means like that their identity is really essential, because when you record the artifact, you kind of like simply record from personal perspective, and that is very personal. Okay, very legit personal. Okay, because I have experience, I record almost like thousands of artifact episode, and basically I blunt out so many kind of like a stuff that I'm never really proud of that. Because let me tell you one thing, when you record the artifact, you kind of like blunt it out everything. Okay, and when you blunt it out everything, those are unfiltered, unscripted, and kind of like unverified. Okay, so basically the stuff that you are kind of like mentioning in the artifact is not exactly right. It's kind of like your opinion. Okay, so might be kind of like somebody is this thing that if you kind of like mention, and in the future people will kind of like found out that you kind of like mention this thing, and you realize that no, I shouldn't supposed to mention that thing, and you kind of like realize that oh my god, I've been really fucked up and things like that. What is exactly my job here? My job here to kind of like simply your artifact or whatever you kind of like mention regarding about your artifact, it kind of like went to the public, but they will not gonna know you who you are. Why is that? Is because of that key you have to be kind of like somebody bit free regarding about confidently you could say everything. Okay, like basically is this thing that key if you know that you are kind of like somebody hidden, then probably you would kind of like somebody bit really confident, you can kind of like talk everything, you can kind of like blunt it out. Okay, no, basically it's very hard to explain, but it's like that na ki way that I'm trying to imagine. It's okay, I'm kind of like telling the multiple consequences, the multiple things and that. Okay, imagine. Okay, imagine you have profile name Prozac 1943, you actually record your artifact regarding about does alien exist or not. Okay, now basically is this thing. Now your profile name is a Prozac 1943 that you are kind of like a seeing, but the other people are kind of like a seeing different name. They kind of like a seeing as a kind of like a somebody Half Blood Prince 43 with kind of like a different profile photo and things and that. But the artifact is the same. Artifact is the same and things like that. Now, and also another thing, artifact episode cannot able to share. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing, the YouTube video can able to share through WhatsApp to Instagram to anywhere, but artifact cannot able to share. You cannot share your artifact. No, you cannot share. You can't share anything at all. You cannot share your profile photo, nothing really at all. You cannot do that thing. Okay, yeah. There is no share button. There is nothing really at all. Okay, but still is this thing that key when you record the artifact and when you kind of like actually talk something really good, and it happened that when you record the artifact, you talk something really good, really great, you kind of like suddenly feel that wow, I said something really good, really great. Okay, yeah. And when you kind of like suddenly record that particular thing, and when you kind of like sense that feeling that key, dude, I kind of like suddenly record really good, like basically I just, yeah, I kind of like a feel like kind of like a really knowledgeable person and things like that, and I wanted to share that artifact. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing, if you kind of like decided that you wanted to share, don't share. Okay, yeah. Why? I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna tell you why step by step. Okay, yeah. Still is this thing that if you wanted to share but you cannot able to share because there is no share button, there is nothing really at all. Okay, yeah. So how do you supposed to? Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, other person, let's just say your friend has a kind of like a something same application artifact, and he also have a kind of like a something artifact, he also record his artifact too. Okay, now basically is this thing, what do you want, that you wanted to share your artifact to that particular person. So how do you supposed to do that thing? You cannot able to do this thing because there is no share button. Okay, so basically is this thing, what you do is that you kind of like actually mention that, okay, you kind of like say this thing, search my name. Okay, yeah. Now what is that your name? Your name is a Prozac 1943. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing that if that particular person, your friend would search your name Prozac 1943, and if like basically if they found your name, they click on your name, they kind of like see your artifact, they can listen your artifact too. Okay, now this is something really good. Now you kind of like share your artifact to the someone else. Okay, yeah. And it's kind of like feel really good because the person that you kind of like share, that you know he's your friend and things like that. Okay, yeah. But dude, okay, yeah, it's not a kind of like a meme that you should supposed to be share with your friend. It's not a kind of like a video that you should supposed to be share with your friend. No, it's an artifact. Now artifact is a very different thing. Okay, yeah. The friend that you know is very different opinion regarding about different concept. Like basically is this thing, artifact is a kind of like a belief of thoughts, and definitely our thoughts is completely different than your best friend. Even if that even if that friend is kind of like one of your best friend and things and that, still his belief, his thought process is completely different than you. Okay, yeah. So if you might think that you record the artifact really good and you wanted to share your artifact to someone else, and probably that particular person kind of like somebody find out and thinks that okay, like this is kind of like Prozac 1943, he kind of like click that thing, they found your profile, click add and listen your artifact. What exactly happened? At first glance, okay, yeah, they will kind of like say this thing, okay, that is really good, like you kind of like mention really good thing. Okay, yeah, but let me tell you, the story is not end here. Okay, yeah, you will gonna record multiples of artifact. Like basically you will gonna record artifact every single day, and obviously your opinion is somewhat something not exactly that your friend liked. Okay, let's just imagine, let me give you context. Okay, okay, yeah. So basically it's this thing that today you kind of like record the artifact, you feel really good, you share your artifact to your friend. Okay, yeah. Now friend says your artifact is really good and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now basically after a week what exactly happened? Okay, yeah, you kind of like assembly fight with that particular friend. Okay, yeah, regarding about something, not with the artifact but something. Okay, yeah. And basically this thing, you completely forget that that particular person have kind of like a simply follow your kind of like a simply profile. Okay, yeah. So basically you don't really knew it because it's actually happened a week ago and things like that. And basically you kind of like hit the record and you are kind of like a mention regarding about this thing that my friend, I kind of like hit him, like it can this happened, that happened, that happened. Like basically you blunt it out everything. You kind of like blame that particular person and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now basically when you try to kind of like do this thing, when you try to express this thing, as I mentioned, I kind of like make this application to blunt it out everything. Okay, even if that is a wrong, right, no, you just kind of like blunt it out, express everything. Okay, yeah, just express. Okay, yeah. Now if you do this thing, okay, if you do this thing, that other person, he actually follows you. Okay, he actually follows you, and that other person also get notification that you can kind of like upload the artifact. And that other person would kind of like knows Prozac 1943 is you, and he kind of like record the artifact about you, about means your friend, and he would kind of like listen, and basically this thing he would kind of like betrayal and things like that. He would kind of like think that what the fuck and things like that. Like he was kind of like a thing that this is what you kind of like think about me and stuff like that. It kind of like create and chaos. It kind of like create and chaos. Okay, yeah. So that's why okay, I'm just kind of like explain very simple example. There are multiples of kind of like a thing will gonna happen, because when we are kind of like living the life, there are so many consequences happen and things and that. Okay, yeah. So your artifact are not meant to be shared with your friend, are not meant to be kind of like shared with your kind of like somebody, even if your girlfriend or things like that. No, don't do that thing. Okay. So that's why there is no share button. There is nothing at all. Okay. Another thing is that I mentioned that the person who kind of like a search by your name. Okay. Yeah. What if I do that thing that instead of kind of like he was searching your name, Prozac 1943, but they will not gonna found it that you. Why? Like basically your profile name is a Prozac 1943. Okay. Yeah. And other person wanted to search that thing, but they will not gonna found your name. Okay. Yeah. Why is that thing? Is because of that chaos will not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. So that's why your profile name that you are seeing is a Prozac 1943, but for the public profile, for the public perspective, your profile name is kind of like a very much different that you don't know. Okay, yeah. And that's why is this thing that how do you supposed to share your profile photo, share your profile if you don't know what is your profile name? Because for you, your profile name is a Prozac 1943, but for the people, for the public, you don't know them. You don't know what's your profile, what's your public profile name. Okay, and that's why other people will not gonna found your profile photo. And when the other people will not gonna found your profile photo, then basically they will not gonna follow you and things and that. Okay, and then this chaos will not gonna happen. Okay, yeah. So that's why I kind of like somebody say this thing that you shouldn't supposed to be share your artifact with someone else, because artifact are personal thing, our thoughts, and our thoughts are completely different than your best friend, than your girlfriend and things and that. And when they know about your profile photo, your profile name, and they follow you and things and that, it kind of like somebody create just a chaos and things like that. Now basically this thing, then another question actually arise. Then how do I supposed to follow anybody? You cannot. Okay, yeah, because I made this artifact, like basically I will gonna made this artifact is artifact is not meant for kind of like some people you follow. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing, there is no kind of like a celebrity profile photo that you could kind of like somebody have like a Justin Bieber or kind of like a things or that. No, nothing at all. In here, in this application, every people who actually record the artifact, those are kind of like individual human are exist on the planet. That's it. Okay, you don't know nothing really about them. Even if you kind of like somebody record the artifact of someone who might be a kind of like somebody, a Will Smith or Kylie Jenner or things like that. Okay, yeah, but you don't know. Okay, you don't know things like that. Okay, yeah, because I want that there is no luxury things actually happen. Like my application shouldn't supposed to be kind of like somebody give someone any kind of like a preference or things like that. No, my artifact is kind of like a meant for kind of like people share their thoughts and things and that without knowing who they are, what they are, things. And your personality is actually judged by your thoughts. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing that is someone kind of like saying something good and bad and things like that. If you like them, you kind of like resonate with that thought process, you actually follow. Okay, yeah. Basically is this thing what is actually happened. How do you supposed to follow someone else? Okay, yeah. It's you will not gonna follow that someone else by kind of like by name or things or that, because there is no name. There is no name at all, because your profile photo, your profile name is kind of like completely different than public profile name. Okay, yeah. And the public profile name is kind of like you don't know that how do you supposed to share your profile name. So there is no at all. So you cannot able to share your profile photo or profile name or profile. You cannot able to share your artifact and things like that. You cannot do anything. You just kind of like record your artifact. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing, how do you supposed to follow someone else? How do you supposed to follow someone else? Okay, so in your home feed, as I mentioned, my application is kind of like a somewhat something look like a YouTube. Okay, yeah. So basically YouTube is kind of like a recommend you some sort of amount of video, same thing. Okay, yeah. Like basically is this thing, my application will kind of like understand who you are, what you are. Okay, yeah. And basically they will kind of like recommend you some sort of kind of like a similar artifact of someone else. If you just have to listen that particular artifact without knowing who they are, what they are, and things like that. If you resonate with his thought process, if you resonate with this thing, you follow that particular person. Okay, that's it. You just follow that particular person. Okay, yeah. And this is the way that you would follow other person, but you don't know who is that person and things like that. Those person actually exist at somewhere, but you don't know them. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like an artifact that I want. Okay, this is the kind of like an application that I wanted to make. Okay, yeah. Now till this point you understand everything. Okay, what is actually my application, what I want to do and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now let's talk about the challenge. What is actually the problem? Okay, yeah. Also, okay, yeah. My application, okay, yeah, run on kind of like a simply algorithm, run on AI algorithm. Okay, yeah. AI algorithm, like basically is this thing, my algorithm is kind of like something, my algorithm, AI algorithm, I kind of like name as a Adam. Okay, yeah. Because like like basically I'm gonna name as a Adam. Okay, yeah. Adam is a kind of like assembly runs entire AI engine inside the artifact. Okay, yeah. Adam will understand you, who you are, what you are. No, who you are means like that Adam will not know you what's your real name or things like that and that. Okay, let me give you context. Okay, what is actually internal thing happened. Also, this is kind of like a thing that I'm thinking right now at the moment means like that ki 21 November 2025 till the moment that I think about this artifact would gonna happen, but in the future it might gonna something happen very differently. I'm not really sure, but I'm kind of like creating the blueprint regarding about how is actually work is actually happened. Okay, so basically is this thing, the artifact and kind of like somebody, let's just say that okay, kind of like a runs on Adam. Okay, Adam is a AI algorithm. Okay, I'm gonna mention Adam, and Adam is a AI algorithm who actually runs the entire artifact. Okay, now Adam will understand you, but Adam will not know you. Okay, not know you means what? Not know you means what? Okay, so basically as I mentioned in the first step that I mentioned, that at the spur of the moment you kind of like mention your name or your details or things and that. Those are kind of like some details, those are things are kind of like assembly add a beep over there. Okay, like basically understand the noun and things like that. So what exactly is this thing? What exactly is that particular stuff? Okay, so basically is this thing, imagine as an Adam who can control the entire artifact. Okay, but there is a kind of like assembly a yellow box. Okay, a yellow box is kind of like a determine a user. Okay, so what exactly is this thing? What exactly is this thing? The yellow box is also AI too, but it kind of like assembly very different. Okay, it does not kind of like run the entire artifact, but it kind of like assembly understand the user, not like it know the user. Understanding the user is a Adam part, knowing the user is a yellow box thing. Okay, now what is actually yellow box gonna do? Okay, The yellow box is a kind of like assembly a first filter to kind of like assembly know who is exactly the user, and kind of like assembly take the noun, take the information. Like basically, let's just say that my name is Saurabh Bauthare. I am belong to the India. I'm from Wardha, Maharashtra, India. Okay, yeah. And now basically this is the sentence. Okay, this is a sentence. Okay, let me explain again. Okay. So my name is Saurabh Bauthare. I am from India. I like filmmaking. I like painting. I also like photography too. And basically, is this thing also I love kind of like watching movies and things and that and that. Now this is the kind of like a sentence that I mention. Okay, in the artifact. Okay. Now what is exactly noun in this particular sentence? My name is Saurabh Bauthare. Saurabh Bauthare is my name. Where I belong to? India. India is also noun. Okay, yeah. Now basically Saurabh Bauthare and India is a noun. Okay, yeah. Then rest of the sentence is kind of like assembly, nothing really noun in this thing. I like filmmaking, I like photography, I like things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So photography, filmmaking and things, these are not noun, these are kind of like assembly the adjective or things like that. Okay, yeah. So what exactly is this thing? Okay, yeah. That yellow box are kind of like assembly knows my name and knows where I live. It takes that information and it add beep over there. Okay, yeah. And that beep will kind of like a transfer to the Adam. Okay, yeah. Now Adam knows your name is X, you are from X, and you like painting, photography or things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically Adam has this information that your name is X, things and that. Okay, it doesn't know you, but it understand you. It understand you like painting, you like photography, you like kind of like a things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So Adam understand you. A yellow box knows you. Knows you means like that ki it knows this particular things in that. Also, the Adam and yellow box will not gonna share the information. Okay, yeah. Let me tell you, when the artifact will gonna record, it record the artifact and it kind of like a first it pass through the yellow box. The yellow box is kind of like somebody remove all the noun and things like that, and it kind of like somebody stored at somewhere or kind of I'm not really sure what exactly yellow box gonna do, but it kind of like somebody remove the kind of like a noun part. Okay, remove the noun part, and it kind of like somebody giving the blank without noun artifact transfer to the Adam. Okay, and now Adam will kind of like understand user without knowing your name and things and that and that. Okay, now why I did that thing? Why is that thing? Why I kind of like not letting Adam knows the name and things like that? Because I think that when I record the artifact, I realize that I kind of like mention a lot of things at the spur of the moment. I mention a lot of things. Like let me tell you one thing. Like till now, I'm kind of like a recording almost like a 33 minute. I'm kind of like a talk about a lot of stuff about this and that and that and that and that and that. Okay, now basically is this thing. If Adam knows me, who is me, like basically at the spur of the moment, I mention my name and things and that and that. So Adam knows everything regarding about user and things like that. Now basically, imagine if the Adam knows every user name, people, where they are from, what is exactly their interest and things and that and that and that, the Adam will hold so much amount of power. Okay, yeah. Let's just imagine, let's take 1 million people are kind of like a recording artifact. So basically Adam holds the entire information about all those 1 million people, what they're gonna do, what they like, what they kind of like what they want to do, because artifact is a thought process. It's a thought process. It's our fucking thought process, dude. Okay, yeah. So Adam will have so much amount of information, and if the Adam will have so much amount of information, then probably it can multiples of consequences will gonna happen. If someone hacked the Adam, then probably Adam will kind of like destroy or things like that. Artifact would be destroyed and things like that, because Adam have immense amount of information regarding about every people and things like that. Okay, yeah. So that's why I don't want that Adam should supposed to be have that much amount of like information. It should supposed to be have kind of like somebody information about your personality, but it shouldn't supposed to be have information about you. Okay, yeah. So might be that yellow box or kind of like something, that yellow box will kind of like remove that noun or things like that, okay, yeah, from your artifact, so that it kind of like somebody understand you, okay, yeah. So basically Adam will knows you by your profile name and your public profile name, and that's it, okay, yeah. And it kind of like somebody understand by whatever you kind of like mention in this thing, okay. So that's why I kind of like put this, that yellow box is kind of like a remove that kind of like somebody your part, remove the kind of like a noun and things like that, okay, okay. Get it, okay. Till now you understand this thing. If you are kind of like somebody very geeky person, then you might understand. If you're not, I'm trying to explain as simple as possible as it can, but this is what kind of like somebody algorithm we actually work in my artifact. Now why is that thing, why the algorithm, why am I kind of like utilizing the algorithm and things like that? You have to make the kind of like a simple application and kind of like somebody recommend the kind of like artifact for the kind of like somebody like an watch basis, like that na. Why are you kind of like utilizing algorithm or Adam? Why are you kind of like using this thing, okay? Now hear me out, okay. When I record the artifact, like basically I'm recording artifact for almost like a decade, and I realize so much about how I record artifact and how will other people also record the artifact too, okay. Let me give perspective. Artifact is kind of like a giving you freedom that you can say anything that you want. It just say anything that you can say, okay. You can talk about anything, like basically you can talk about something really good stuff, like basically this thing, how do we supposed to kind of like stop the chaos in things, or how do we supposed to make sure our life is actually much better, or things like that. You were going to talk about how the spiritualism or things or that and that, okay. No, basically this thing, if you are going to talk about that particular good thing, okay, that is good thing. But probably, does people will going to talk about the good thing? No, people will going to talk about bad things too, okay, bad things too. Like basically people are came from very different continent, very different surrounding and things and that, and they will gonna talk dirty. Definitely they will gonna talk dirty. They will gonna talk about kind of like hate speeches. They will gonna talk about kind of like somebody the really fucked up shit, really fucked up shit, okay. Because as I mentioned, our thought process, our thoughts are very unique, very different, very, like, I don't know how do I supposed to explain this thing. Is that thing na ki sometimes our thought process are so much bigger and better and brighter and things like that, but some thoughts are so crippled, so dark, so monsters and things like that. Because let me tell you one thing, okay, our thoughts are kind of like sometimes look like angel, but sometimes our thoughts would be look like monster too. And this is a kind of like a thoughts are came from one person. Like sometimes our artifact, I'm going to talk about the artifact, I'm going to talk about some really good stuff. Consider as a kind of like artifact as an angel artifact, a kind of like a bright and things like that. But sometimes as me, as a one person, I'm going to talk about shit stuff, really shit stuff. Like basically I realized that when I kind of like a recording artifact in previous year, I kind of like talk about lot of shit stuff regarding about people and things and that, okay. Now it considered as a kind of like a monster artifact, okay. It's completely not wrong, it's completely wrong and things like that. It's fucking wrong, okay. This is our thought process, exactly. Like basically artifact is not an artifact, it's a thought process. It's our thoughts. And sometimes our thoughts are kind of like a really look like angel, but sometimes our thoughts are kind of like look like monsters and things like that. If I am kind of like giving this privilege to everybody, they can talk anything that they want, blunt it out everything, that means they will gonna talk about shit. They will gonna talk about some really good stuff too, but most of people actually talk about wrong stuff too, really bad stuff too, okay. That you shouldn't supposed to be sure. If you kind of like somebody, if you shouldn't supposed to be listen, and if you listen, then probably it might gonna kind of like somebody change your personality or cripple your thought process or things or that. It kind of like a corrupt you, legitly corrupt you and things like that. So basically it's this thing that I need, if I wanted to kind of like recommend a good artifact, how do I supposed to kind of like categorize which one is actually good artifact, which one is not good artifact? How do I supposed to categorize this thing regarding about like base or things like that? No, it's not going to work out that way, okay. Like basically is this thing, the people opinion might not be exactly right to recommend this thing, okay. Let me give you perspective, okay. A YouTube video is kind of like somebody judge by the couple of things. First of all is that how many people watch that particular video for how much longer at times. Okay, let's just say if your video is about 10 minutes, people almost like 100 out of almost like a 90 people watch almost like 90% of your video. That means YouTube understand this video is really good. Okay, this is the one way of kind of like actually judging the video. Another way is that how many likes in this particular video. Let's just say 100 people watch your video and 100 out of almost like a 90 people like your video. So that means YouTube knows that your video is kind of like so many people are actually watching. 100 out of 90% of people are actually watching 90% of the video. So that is one thing is really good. Also, people are actually liking your video. 100 out of 90 people are actually liking that video. So that means your video is really good, really great. So recommend that video to the more and more people. Okay, recommend that video to the more and more people. And this is what kind of like simply YouTube recommend to the video. By the way, there are multiples of way to recommend the video, like a thumbnail design and things, and click through CTR and things, and that these are also things. But one of the kind of like two things are really essential for recommend the video in YouTube platform is that watch time and how many likes. Okay, this is the kind of like two very essential thing. Now, if I wanted to kind of like judge artifact on that basis, then probably it will not gonna happen that way. Why is that thing? Why is that thing? Okay, let me kind of understand by as simple as point of perspective. Okay, let's take a kind of like a simply YouTube person. I am a YouTuber who actually make a video regarding about kind of like a simply let's just say gun. Okay, gun means like that. What is actually my content? My content is that I have so many guns. Okay, and I'm kind of like a simply I wanted to talk about this thing, but let me pause here. I have kind of like pressure to kind of like a release, so let me pause. I have so much something wanted to say. Okay, let me pause here for a while. Oh boy, I feel really good after I exhaust everything out of my body. I feel like a little bit lightweight and things like that. Yeah. Okay, so where was I? What I was actually talking about? I was actually talking about how does artifact will gonna judge. Okay, and how does artifact will gonna which artifact should supposed to be good and which artifact should supposed to be not good. Because I already mentioned regarding about that if I kind of like simply give people to privilege that they should supposed to be talk anything that they can, then people will gonna talk shit, people will gonna talk something really really crippled and things like that, and which is not really good for the society. Because if the other people might gonna listen, they also become kind of like something crippled or corrupt, they will also gonna corrupt too. Okay, so it is really essential for me to kind of like judge the artifact, that which artifact is kind of like really good or not good. Okay, now if I'm trying to kind of like judge the artifact, I have to be kind of like understand regarding about how does YouTube is actually judge the video. Okay, now I already mentioned regarding about how does YouTube judge the video. YouTube judge the video by two simple thing. First thing is that watch time, like how many people watch your video. 100 out of almost like a 90% of the people watch 90% of the video. So that means your video is really good. If the people are not really watching that much amount of video, then your video is not really that good. Okay, so it kind of like depend on watch time and also like. Okay, 100 people watch your video, 100 out of 90% put the like button, so that means your video is really good. So basically this thing, YouTube judge video by regarding about these two factor, watch time and like. There are also multiple ways to YouTube judge the video by thumbnail, click-through rate or things like that, but these are kind of like simply a secondary things. Most essential thing in the YouTube is that how many watch time that you have or how many likes that you have. Okay, this is the way that YouTube judge the video. Now let's take a perspective. Okay, now basically this judgmental thing, like this way of judgmental, why I'm not kind of like utilizing this judgmental in my artifact. Okay, like basically I have also like button too, I also have kind of like watch time too. So basically I should supposed to be judge the artifact regarding about watch time, regarding about like, right, same as YouTube, but I shouldn't supposed to do that thing. Why? Let me give you perspective, let me give you point of thing. Okay, take an example as a kind of like a simply, I am a content creator on YouTube. Let's say I am a kind of like a Mr. Beast. Okay, yeah. I am a Mr. Beast and I am a kind of like a content creator. I have almost like a 500 million subscriber and things like that. Every video takes almost like a 200 million video watch. Okay, yeah, 200 million people actually watch my video, and as also my watch time and my like is also really good. Okay, yeah. Now I make a video regarding about kind of like challenges and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now in somewhat something that video, like basically the content that I'm kind of like creating is regarding about kind of like a something regarding challenge and things like that. Okay, yeah. Now ask this question to first, is my content is good or not good? It's good. It's a fun, it's a entertainment, it's a good, right? So it's a good video. Okay, in my video does have any kind of like some nudity or any kind of like simply the disrespectful for any kind of like a religious or any kind of like some people or things like that? Do I do this thing in my content, in Mr. Beast content? No, I didn't do that. Like basically I make a content regarding about kind of like a challenges and things like that. At the spur of the moment I kind of like criticize people regarding about something, but those are really minor. But still my content is not about kind of like somebody the kind of like nudity, or my content is not kind of like describing about disrespect about the another religious or another kind of like somebody demographic people or things like that. No, nothing like that at all. Okay, yeah. So my video is really good, right? Yeah, my video is kind of like a people entertaining video. People kind of like entertain and people will kind of love to see and things like that. So that's why my video means Mr. Beast video, it kind of like a recommend to the more and more people and things like that, which is kind of like a really much better, right? Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing that, let's just say I am a Mr. Beast video and I'm kind of like simply offering money to the people for doing that challenge. Okay, yeah. Now is that particular content is good or not good? Like basically the people are kind of like doing this challenge in my YouTube channel is for the money. Like basically in the end I'm actually kind of like offering them prize money. So is it good or not good? Like basically is this thing, it is good now. Like basically is this thing, a challenging video is a kind of like somebody depends on how much big reward is that. Okay, yeah. So basically yes, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's not kind of like a bad thing. It's a good thing. Okay. So I am a Mr. Beast video. My content is really good. I'm not kind of like sharing any kind of like a nudity or any kind of like a disrespectful language to the any demographic people. As well as my video is about the entertaining, and my video is kind of like somebody making society is much more better place, right? Is it kind of like a really good to say? Okay, yeah, it's good to say. That's why I'm kind of like somebody, my videos kind of like recommend to the more and more people, which is good. Okay, yeah. Okay, this is good. This is good. Now I am a Mr. Beast. Okay, yeah. Now I am a David Dobrik. Now if you don't really understand who is actually David Dobrik is a kind of like a YouTuber who actually kind of like make a video regarding about vlogs. Okay, yeah, he actually make a vlogs, and in this vlog, his vlog is kind of like a bit more entertaining. How much it entertain? It because of that he kind of like make fun of people. He make fun of his friend and things like that. I'm not going to his personal and things like that. What he can do in his personal life, his own things and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. My choice is that, let's just say I am a chairman of the YouTube and I just have to kind of like decide that is David Dobrik video is kind of like a bit really better for society or things like that. First of all, let's take a first step. Is David Dobrik video is entertaining? Definitely, it's very entertaining. It's very addictive and things like that. Okay, it's a good thing. Is my video, is David Dobrik video is kind of like somebody sharing any kind of like a nudity? Well, it's not kind of like a fully nudity, but it kind of like a sharing some sort of kind of like a part of nudity, like context or things or that. Okay, or phrases or things like that. So yeah, is my content or David Dobrik content is kind of like a somebody doing any criticism to the kind of like a some sort of amount of people or some sort of amount of demographic people or things like that? Yeah, definitely. David Dobrik video is kind of like a video kind of like criticizing his friend or kind of like criticizing some sort of kind of like people around them or things like that. Okay, yeah. Now, is David Dobrik video is kind of like better for kind of like society or things like that? Like for the entertainment purpose, yeah. I could able to consume this thing, but for the societal point of perspective, no, it's not. Okay, it's not. No, basically, is this thing, who am I supposed to be kind of like a judge? The kind of like a Mr. Beast video and kind of like a David Dobrik video. No, I shouldn't supposed to be judge. Like basically, is this thing, YouTube is also meant for kind of like entertain people and things like that. Okay, yeah, because YouTube is kind of like a meant for entertain people. It's meant for kind of like whatever the skills that you have, you can showcase that skill. Now, basically, if you think skills means like painting, guitar, or any kind of like a skills, but skills are kind of like a very different terms too. Like basically, some of the skills have kind of like a roasting. Like some of the people are really good at roast someone else. Roast means like that, criticizing someone else. Okay, yeah, like these also skills too, and they also kind of like showcase that talent on YouTube platform too. And YouTube actually promote that thing because YouTube are meant to be kind of like a entertain people. Okay, entertain people, yeah. But Artifact is not meant to be entertain people. Okay, it meant to be kind of like something connecting the soul, connecting the like-minded people, connecting that whatever the thoughts that you have, is your thoughts is kind of like resonate with other people or not. Like basically, is the other people are kind of like somebody have a similar kind of like a mindset people or not, or basically is this thing you kind of like somebody grow. Like basically is this thing, if I wanted to make this artifact, I wanted to make this artifact that people should supposed to be get some sort of value when they listen some sort of artifact. Okay, yeah, or they might kind of like gain some sort of information from something else. Okay, yeah, it's not meant to be kind of like a things like basically is this thing that let's just say that I kind of like record the artifact regarding about breakup and things like that. Okay, yeah, I was kind of like very much disturbed and I was kind of like really fucked up and things, and just like, yeah, I kind of like record and kind of like mention this thing that I'm gonna do suicide. Yeah, next day I'm kind of like decided that tomorrow I will gonna do suicide and things like that. Now basically is this thing, if Adam knows that thing, you kind of like record this artifact and you kind of like without knowing your name and things like that, but Adam knows that he basically is this thing that you are kind of like doing the suicide and things like that. What kind of like something Adam will gonna do? Adam will kind of like try to recommend such a video that kind of like simply recommend such an artifact that how life is really good, how life is really breakup, how life is really better. Okay, yeah, like basically breakup is kind of like a things that is a failure is always gonna happen in life, but the life is meant to be get once and it will gonna end very quickly. But you have to be kind of like a present in the moment and kind of like somebody make sure the like basically the make your day, make your today is a present, make the day like basically Adam will kind of like somebody recommend such an artifact that he would kind of like not do any kind of like somebody not do any kind of like somebody suicidal things and that and that. Okay, yeah, because this is what something really important for the Adam to kind of like somebody let his life should supposed to be saved. If that particular person would kind of like listen the artifact, that artifact should supposed to be kind of like somebody resonate regarding about how good is life and things like that, so that he might gonna change his thought process, and then he might gonna change his plan to not to do suicide and things like that. Okay, yeah, so basically that's for that particular purpose I wanted to kind of like understand Adam, because let me tell you one thing, as I mentioned, and I'm trying to emphasize the gravity of it. Okay, yeah, in a YouTube platform you are kind of like making videos, and when you try to make videos there are multiple kind of like went through filter. Like basically you shoot a video, if something wrong you kind of like take another take, or kind of like a take, like basically if you fuck up, if you kind of like mention something wrong, you can kind of like change, you can kind of like delete, you can kind of like somebody just repeat or kind of like somebody stop that mistake or things like that. Because in the YouTube platform when you try to make video, your video kind of like pass through multiples of levels of steps and things like that. But in Artifact there is not. As I mentioned, if I'm giving the privilege to the people that they could talk anything that they want, they will gonna talk shit, that is definitely gonna true. Okay, yeah, and when they will gonna talk shit and other people might gonna listen, the people will kind of like corrupt their mind and things like that. So it is really essential for me to kind of like use the kind of like the proper judgmental system to judge the artifact. Now, as I mentioned, why am I kind of like mentioning this YouTuber? Okay, yeah, because let me tell you one thing, the Mr. Beast has a kind of like the 500 million follower. I'm not really sure, 300, 400, I'm not really sure, but yeah, almost like that amount of millions of follower. Okay, yeah, which is good because his content is kind of like meant to be kind of like a really good and meant to be kind of like make the society much more better way. Okay, yeah, but David Dobrik video, David Dobrik video is not meant to be kind of like something really good for the society. Okay, yeah, he has also almost like a 10 million subscriber, which is also really big number. 10 million is really big number. 10 million is like 10 million people are kind of like seeing his video and things like that. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, if imagine, okay, yeah, if 10 million people are watching David Dobrik video kind of like a criticizing people, make fun of people and things and that, like basically what he do in his personal life, I don't want to kind of like talk about this thing, but yeah. And if other people are kind of like influence, the 10 million people, in this 10 million people, let's just say 5 million people are kind of like somebody resonate or kind of like somebody influence with his skills or things and that, they also make fun of in the real life too. They also make fun of other people in the real life too, and which kind of like somebody create very bad impact to the society. Okay, because it creates a cycle. Okay, it creates a cycle. Now in a YouTube thing, it's kind of like somewhat something kind of like somebody a conventional, like basically is this thing, we actually watch YouTube video as a kind of like for the entertainment purpose. We are not kind of like meant to do influence and things like that. Almost like let's just say 100 out of almost like 80 people, 80% of the people will consider as a kind of like YouTube video or kind of like entertainment purpose, but 20% of the people are getting influenced by your video. Okay, yeah. Now imagine, okay, yeah, artifact is thought. It's kind of like a directly went inside your head and things like that. If let's just say that a kind of like a person who kind of like record the video record the artifact regarding about he will gonna do suicide and things like that, because he was kind of like facing a lot of failure and things and breakup and stuff like that. Now if he record that particular artifact, and that artifact will kind of like listen by someone else, they also get influenced by that thing too, because in somewhat something people also get the similar problem. Okay, yeah, people also face that particular problems too and things like that. Now other people are kind of like decided to do a kind of like somebody the kind of like somebody suicide and things like that. He record that artifact, and that artifact will kind of like listen by someone else. Those people also getting influenced by kind of like do the suicide and things like that. Now basically why is that thing? Because artifact is not the entertainment purpose, it's for the people who actually getting values and things like that. Now as I mentioned, the value means like that something good value and something bad value too, and that other person who actually getting very bad value regarding about he should supposed to be do suicide, because he actually understand, he resonate that particular person who kind of like somebody doing the suicide and things like that, and which is really wrong. But kind of like that particular person will gonna die too. Like basically it kind of like somebody he was thinking about dying, and that is completely wrong. That is completely wrong. Like basically is this thing that my platform is became responsible for that other person death. Yeah, legitly, like my platform is became a responsible for other person death, and that is I don't want. I make this platform for make the human much more better person. Okay, yeah, because it actually happened with me. I kind of like the way that I'm talking right now, the way that I'm explaining stuff is because of the artifact, and I understand that how much it value to me, and I also very much sure that how much it value to the other people too. But still I also understand that people will gonna utilize for this platform for wrong purposes too, and it kind of like create a chaos in the society, legitly chaos in the society. So it is really essential for me to judge the artifact, not the based on kind of like assembly the watch time or like or things like that. Because let me tell you one thing, the people who are kind of like listening that particular suicidal artifact, that particular person will kind of like watch the entire artifact. That means his watch time is really good, as well as he also kind of like resonate, so he also like that artifact too. So that means like and kind of like a things which kind of like a recommend that this artifact, my Adam knows that thing, this artifact will kind of like really good, so recommend this thing to more, and this will kind of create chaos. Okay, legitly chaos. Okay, yeah. So artifact shouldn't supposed to be judged by watch time, shouldn't supposed to be judged by the like and things like that. So how do I supposed to judge my artifact? How do I supposed to judge my artifact? Okay, yeah, or other people's artifact. Okay, yeah. So I'm thinking is that for this particular context, okay, yeah, Adam should supposed to be intervene. Okay, yeah, Adam should supposed to be understand that ki, what did you talk in the artifact regarding about it should supposed to be understand, does it kind of like a something show kind of like a saying some sort of value, like basically is this thing the artifact is kind of like a representing kind of like a, such a thing that it kind of like add value to the society or not. If the artifact is actually regarding about kind of like assembly the any kind of like assembly the religious hate speeches, or kind of like assembly the criticism regarding about the any other demographic people, or kind of like assembly caste and criticism and things and that, or any other kind of like assembly stuff which is kind of like a wrong, then kind of like assembly Adam will understand that this artifact is not, it kind of like gives you red flag or things or that, or maybe kind of like assembly try to do less recommend to the people. Okay, yeah, because this artifact is not really good or something. Let's just imagine sexual. Okay, let's just say sexual. Let's just say there is a person who's kind of like a recording artifact regarding about how he kind of like somebody had a sex with someone else. He kind of like mentioned everything that he kind of like did this thing, he put his penis in his vagina and do this thing and that and that and that and that. Now basically when we are trying to talk about the sexual things, we actually feel really good, we actually feel something really good, and yeah, like basically it is also really good. But if that particular person is kind of like sharing the artifact every single time regarding about sexual things and that, then probably the people who other people who actually listen that particular person artifact, that sexual artifact, then probably other people are kind of like resonate, and they also wanted to do the sexual activity too, because because they knows that this person is kind of like somebody doing a sex with any random person every single day, so why I cannot do this thing. So basically other people are also kind of like do this thing, and if like basically I'm not saying doing a sex is kind of like a wrong thing, no, but with the consent. Okay, yeah, like basically if you have consent, then do this thing, it's not a bad thing. But if you are not getting consent, then what you will gonna do, you will gonna rape that particular person, or who you will gonna rape that particular woman that you get and things like that, because you already get influenced by this particular person who are kind of like somebody recording artifact regarding about how do he sex and things like that. So when this thing happened, blame is not went to that particular person, blame is not went to that particular man, blame is kind of like a went to me, to my platform, because my platform are kind of like somebody recommend to the people to do sex with someone else. And this is really fucked up thing, really fucked up thing. Okay, yeah, so for that particular purpose, Adam should supposed to be intervene the artifact, Adam should supposed to be know the artifact. Adam is AI algorithm should supposed to be intervene the artifact, and it understand what exactly is this artifact about. Is this artifact is actually adding some sort of value to the society or not? Okay, if it not, then it could kind of like recommend to the less people. Okay, but still is this thing, I shouldn't supposed to give the entire power to the any kind of like some machine or any kind of like some AI engine or things like that. Why? Because AI engine is not meant to be kind of like a measure the capabilities of what does human can do. Yeah, in somewhat something AI or Adam would understand what is actually good or not good, but still is this thing that human should supposed to be understand. You go. So basically is this thing, what is actually is this thing? Okay, I'm kind of like deciding something else. Okay, deciding what is that. When the people will gonna listen someone's artifact, okay, regarding about how good is not or things like that, instead of like based system, my artifact have a kind of like somebody star based system. Okay, means if this artifact is kind of like a really good and you wanted to kind of like give them kind of like a star base, so you have a kind of like multiple stars, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star and 6 star. Okay, 5 star. Okay, if you really love this particular person, if you really love this particular artifact, you have to give them 5 star. Okay, which is somewhat something that key. Okay, this is something really good artifact. Okay, now this is also another thing, my artifact is also judged by the watch time too. Okay, regarding about watch time, star based system also with the kind of like somebody Adam feedback, Adam kind of like somebody give the rating regarding about how good is that. Okay, so it kind of like somebody every artifact is kind of like somebody something judged by the 3 things. Okay, first thing is that key Adam gives some sort of rating. Okay, regarding about 10 out of maybe 2, 3, 1 regarding about how good is not or things like that. Another thing is that star, how many star it get, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star, 5 star, and how many watch time it get. Okay, how many watch time it gets, like basically 100%, like let's just say artifact is kind of like a record 10 minutes, how many people watch that 10-minute recording artifact. How many people watch that thing? Okay, yeah. Also, I have to be kind of like somebody regarding about that judgmental system. I don't know regarding about how do we supposed to judge at the moment. This is the three things that I think that it will gonna happen, but still in the future, I might should supposed to be utilize another way to kind of like judge the artifact, because still is this thing that it will gonna create the chaos, and I don't want my artifact should supposed to be kind of like create the chaos in society or create any kind of like a things. Definitely not. So I should supposed to be stop that thing, stop those kind of like a dirty artifact to not to share or not to recommend to the more and more people. Okay, yeah, I have to kind of like give them kind of like some red flag or things or that, so you shouldn't supposed to do this thing. Okay, so that's why Adam or artificial intelligence should supposed to be intervene the artifact and kind of like understand things or that. Okay, so that it would supposed to be share or recommend such an artifact that kind of like provide the value to the people, not to kind of like somebody downgrade people or things like that. Okay, but why am I so much emphasizing regarding about this thing? Why is that thing? Why is that? But dude, you already mentioned, I already explained all those examples and things like that. Okay, yeah, but why are you saying so much kind of like a really bad stuff? Like basically is this thing, does people will kind of like talk that shit? Well, is this thing now? This is kind of like a stuff that we don't know. Okay, yeah, because let me tell you one thing. Okay, yeah, in the YouTube platform, as I mentioned, you are multiple ways your video kind of like a filter, but artifact is not. Okay, like basically whatever the people thought process, it just bluntly record. So do you understand? There is no filter at all, nothing at all. The kind of like a yellow box is kind of like somebody remove the noun, but Adam will understand the regarding or the artifact and things like that. So that's why it is really essential for me. If you are kind of like a recording artifact, really good, really great. If you are going to talk about something really good stuff, you are talk about like basically, I'm not saying is that you shouldn't supposed to be record your sexual thought. You shouldn't supposed to record your kind of like a stress. You shouldn't supposed to record. Like you have to talk. Like basically, when you had a sex with first time, mention everything that how do you had a sex, things and that, because you are human. And you wanted to kind of like express your thoughts, and I also wanted to share that thing because it somehow something felt really good too. Okay, yeah, you have to do this thing. But if you have to do this thing every single day, then what exactly that means? That means a wrong, because you will not gonna sex every single day unless you are a porn star or things like that. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, and another thing is that sex is a kind of like somebody holds so much amount of value at early stages. When you kind of like doing a sex after 10 times or then after that, probably the sex is kind of like became a workout to you. Okay, and you will not gonna that much kind of emphasize regarding about that thing. But still is this thing, when you had a first time kiss with someone else, or when you first time you had a sex with someone else, I also allow you to kind of like record that thing. It's good, like let your express thoughts and things like that, but don't do it oftenly or don't do it every day, because that is not really good thing too. Okay, yeah. Also another thing, you are also human too, and I also human too. I also kind of like been through a lot of problem that I also wanted to kind of like suicide myself. And yeah, like basically we are living the life and kind of like we've been through a lot of kind of like stress and things like that, and sometimes we cannot handle that stress, and sometimes we want to kind of like do the suicide. Yes, blunt that thing in the artifact, blunt that thing. Okay, I am allow you to kind of do this thing. Okay, yeah, this is the thing, it's not really bad. It's a kind of like being human, being a person. Okay, but is this thing, if you are doing this thing oftenly, then probably it's not really good thing too. I am saying is this thing, being a human is kind of like somebody being a good part or being a bad part too. As I mentioned, we are kind of like sometimes our artifact look like angel, but sometimes some of the artifact are look like kind of like a monster and things like that. And this is just a kind of like somebody personality. This is our thought process, and this is what I am been through and things like that. Okay, so that's why I kind of like somebody utilizing all those kind of like somebody steps to kind of like somebody figure it out to my platform shouldn't supposed to be kind of like somebody create a chaos in the kind of like somebody the society or things like that. So that's why I'm kind of like building all those resources and things like that to kind of like make sure our artifact should supposed to be kind of like add value to the society, not inverse. Okay, now you understand everything regarding about artifact. This is what I like. Basically, this is the first time I kind of like blunt out everything regarding about artifact and things like that. But still, okay, yeah. Now let's talk about the chaos. Okay, as I mentioned at the earliest, like basically it's been how much time I'm kind of like, it's been almost like a 1 hour I'm recording Artifact. Okay, like basically when I try to talk about something, I feel really good, and when it's just time it just flies by, things like that. But I haven't really talked about the topic. Okay, like the reason why I kind of like talking about this thing. Okay, so let's talk about the problem. Okay, now basically there is one of my friend named Prashik. Okay, um Prashik is a kind of like a somebody is this thing. His perspective is that like the way that his perspective, looking at the AI, artificial intelligence. Okay, he thinks that AI is a threat. You cannot able to share your personal things or things like that, because if you do this thing, then probably it's not gonna good. It kind of like a knows you kind of like a things and that and that and things like that. Now regarding about what he says, he kind of like a thinks that ki, like basically is this thing, he thinks that na ki AI is not the kind of like a thing, like basically it downgrade your productivity and things like that, which is completely not true. Okay, yeah, AI is a kind of like a new tool. If you use it, you will gonna grow. If you're not using it, you will gonna downfall. Okay, yeah, it is really essential. Okay, yeah. But still, what I understand, what he was kind of like saying, he was saying that we shouldn't supposed to be we shouldn't supposed to be kind of like a somebody use the AI, because in somewhat something AI is a kind of like a threat or things like that. Like basically, I understand from his point of perspective, he kind of like consider AI is a threat. Okay, yeah. Now he is a Prashik. Okay, yeah. He's just normal guy. He is very educated, by the way. Okay, he's very educated, by the way. But the way that he was thinking about the AI is kind of like somebody is this thing that I was kind of like thinking about myself, that ki, still there are some of the people are actually exist that they think that AI is a threat in somewhat some their context and things like that. What, yeah, there are so many people might gonna exist. They are kind of like a thing, AI, chat GPT or any kind of like a stuff are threat to the society or things like that, and we shouldn't supposed to be use that, they use that thing, which is kind of like completely wrong. They shouldn't supposed to think like that way, but they think that way, and they kind of like not using any kind of like AI and things like that. I don't know. Okay, whatever is their choice and things. Okay, yeah. But if I'm gonna say, if I'm gonna think that the people are still hesitate regarding about utilizing the AI, chat GPT or things like that, what if the people were gonna say this thing that you shouldn't supposed to be record the artifact, because artifact will gonna take the information, and which is somewhat something true, because Adam is take the information from you. Yeah, Adam will not gonna share that information to the any third party application or any third party things or that no, not really at all. But still is this thing that he, Adam will knows you. Okay, yeah, it kind of like when you record the artifact, Adam will kind of like understand every words what you're gonna say and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. So basically is this thing, if the people are not really convinced to use the chat GPT at the moment, how does people will kind of like convince in the future that they knew that Adam or AI algorithm is kind of like going to understand their artifact, and artifact is even more personal thing. Like basically, like basically is this thing, I kind of like somebody search, like I'm kind of like somebody telling a kind of like a way that like basically what is actually happened, like after we play badminton, we are kind of like usually sit on the like basically on pan tapri, and we are kind of like drinking a tea. Okay, yeah, taking a tea. Okay, and we are kind of like I'm actually telling in a particular way that how are you supposed to buy some sort of stuff. Okay, yeah, like basically if you wanted to buy any face wash, what is actually best face wash for you. So basically you type the prompt, search the kind of like a deep research, and kind of like somebody send the signal, then basically the Google will kind of like analyze every report and everything, and kind of like give it kind of like recommend you one of the best face wash, which kind of like one of the best for every possible perspective. Okay, yeah. No, basically this is just a kind of like a very simple personal thing, like a best face wash. Okay, yeah. And for that particular purpose, Prashik is kind of like a bit hesitant regarding about that. He also think that ki, why do you supposed to share this personal thing in this AI and stuff like that? And like, dude, it's a face wash. It's not even personal thing. But still, he thinks that no, just like you shouldn't supposed to be this and that, wagera, wagera, wagera. Okay, then this actually happened. I was kind of like thinking about that. Like there are so many people that actually exist, like Prashik, they think that ki AI is a threat. What if the people will kind of like simply exist that artifact is a kind of like a threat? Because artifact is kind of like a directly utilizing the artifact, utilizing their thoughts, because artifact is none other than it's their thoughts. It's a very personal thing. So this is the kind of problem that I will gonna face in the future. So I'm not really sure what is at least solution for that, or I'm not really sure how do we supposed to convince people regarding about this thing. But still, this is kind of like one of the biggest problem, because it's not about you. If you are kind of like listening this till the moment, you already convinced. Okay, yeah. But still, there are very less people actually exist who kind of like doesn't really think that way. And that's why our thoughts, our people are very much different than each other. It's not about kind of like a YouTube video that you could kind of like somebody recommend to someone else and people were gonna watch it and didn't really watch it. It just, yeah. But thoughts are very different. It kind of like somebody understand you, it crippled you, and it kind of like a corrupt you, or kind of like somebody that glows you. And that is what something very different regarding about artifact. I don't know, this is kind of like a problem that I will gonna face, but I have to figure it out a way that how do I supposed to solve that thing. Whatever, I should supposed to be end here. Okay, it's been almost like 1 hour 16 minutes. I'm really tired to talk, but this is the first time I'm kind of like explain regarding about artifact, regarding about bluntly and things and that and that. Till this now, I haven't really make any kind of like assembly. I didn't really make this application, but in the future I will gonna make this thing. But also another thing is that key stuff that I mentioned in this artifact is my opinion at the moment. Okay, yeah. In the future, my opinion might be kind of like a very much different, but still, today's me and the future me is also have a kind of like a same goal. Okay, yeah. Let's just say that the stuff that I mentioned at the moment in this artifact, in this today's date, like a 21st of November 2025, at this moment, at this day, whatever I mention, I somewhat something kind of like somebody doing something very different in the future is because of today I am not really sure what will gonna problem that I will gonna face. Okay, yeah. So that's why in the future me might be kind of like a think very differently, or think very different thought process regarding about the way that artifact work and things like that. But still, let me give you, today me and future me are also have a same goal to make my artifact, to make this platform is for better to the society, for better to the humanity, for better to people, not to chaos or not to any kind of like a things or that and that. This is kind of like me, I'm talking right now, and this is the exact opinion would be in the future too. Okay, yeah. So might be like this artifact would be kind of like a became little bit of kind of like assembly, I'm not really sure. Like basically I just feel like that I'm talking in the future probably somewhat something, I don't know. Whatever, this is it, and thank you.